Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Asia Product Compliance Regulatory Trends in Major Markets in 2025 and 2026. So just a little bit of orientation about the webinar platform before we kick things off today. The webinar slides are available to the left side of your screen, along with a few more helpful links if you'd like to explore and learn more about compliance and risks and how we can help simplify and accelerate your compliance processes. And we do, as always, want this webinar to be as engaging as possible. So please do send us any questions you may have, and we'll aim to address them during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And any questions that we don't get to during this session, we'll follow up with you directly after the webinar. If you'd like to submit a question, please use the Ask a Question widget on the left side of your screen. And at any time, if you're interested in having a member of the team follow up with you directly outside of this Q&A function, please just click the Start a Conversation button at the bottom of your screen. And last, but certainly not least, the webinar recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. My name is Orla Morris, and I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Compliance and Risks. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Lynn Cham and Giselle Cha, both regulatory compliance specialists here with Compliance and Risks. So starting with Lynn, Lynn is a dedicated regulatory compliance specialist on our global regulatory compliance team. She specialises in monitoring and analysing regulatory developments across key Asian markets, specifically China and Malaysia, and translating these complex global regulations into actionable strategies for clients. As a subject matter expert, Lynn helps clients with questions on critical topics, including food contact materials, chemicals in products, and the transport of dangerous goods. Lynn brings a strong legal foundation to her compliance work, having been admitted to the Bar of Ireland as a graduate of the Honourable Society of King's Inns and holding a law undergraduate degree from Letterkenny Institute of Technology. Prior to joining Compliance and Risks, Lynn worked at law firms where she conducted in-depth legal research and drafted legal memoranda in civil law matters, providing a robust analytical framework essential for effective regulatory compliance. And finally, Lynn is also fully competent in English, Mandarin, and Malay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lynn.
Hi, Orla. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here as well.
And moving on to Giselle. Giselle is a highly dedicated regulatory compliance specialist focused on guiding multinational clients through the intricate web of global product and ESG regulations. She possesses deep expertise across Taiwan and key ASEAN markets, where she proactively monitors and analyses regulatory developments with a primary focus on high-impact areas such as cybersecurity, eco-design, eco-labelling, and energy efficiency. She directly assists clients in overcoming product market access hurdles by converting complex legal and technical requirements into clear, practical implementation strategies. Having been admitted to the Bar of Ireland after completing her barrister at law degree from the Honourable Society of King's Inns, Giselle brings a rigorous, structured, and legally sound approach to regulatory interpretation. Her foundational experience includes legal research and drafting essential documents during law firm internships. As a Mandarin native speaker who is also fluent in English, Bahasa, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Cantonese, Giselle effectively ensures accurate, nuanced interpretations of foreign language legal texts relevant to her markets. Thank you so much for joining us, Giselle.
Thank you, Ola. I'm very happy to be here as well, and I hope everyone will find this webinar useful today.
Great. So before we dive into the regulatory content, I'll just provide a quick bit of information about compliance and risks for those of you who are joining us for the first time. So here at Compliance and Risks, our mission is to help ensure global companies have the tools and information to build safe, sustainable products in a world full of change. We are the trusted product compliance technology platform provider for the world's leading brands, and we have spent 2 decades honing these digital tools, expertise, and content that you need to stay ahead of the dynamic regulatory landscape, proving your product's compliance, protecting your brands, and helping to drive your growth. We have the world's most comprehensive regulatory database with over 100,000 regulations historically available in C2P. And with a global regulatory coverage and expertise across over 10 industries, we understand that regulatory compliance definitely does not sleep. And our regulatory expert team is truly global, with 28 languages collectively spoken across the team, fortified by our 30 knowledge partners. So as mentioned, C2P, which is our enterprise software, is designed to keep global organizations on top of regulatory changes and their impact worldwide. And this includes early warning alerts, impact probability, productivity workflow tools, and so much more. And with that, I'm delighted to hand it over to you, Giselle.
Okay, thank you, Olar, and thank you everyone for joining us today. In this webinar, Lynn and I will bring you through the product compliance regulatory trends of 2025 and 2026 in 7 Asian markets, including the economic giants like China, Japan, and South Korea, and significant players like Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. And we will also look into emerging markets like Vietnam. Now, the trends in 2025 can be summarized into 4 key themes that are focused on sustainability integrations into product life cycle, stricter product and chemical management, as well as enhanced safety and quality, as well as the new policy area of digital security and AI governance. So without further ado, let's look into our first theme of today: product sustainability and resource circulation. In 2025, we can see a rapid transition of circular economy from concept to mandatory compliance. Governments are now compelling manufacturers to integrate sustainability into product lifecycle, from their design to development and even to end-of-life management. To briefly summarize, the key trends are related to the expansions of EPR schemes, recycle content mandates, product repairability, as well as, very importantly, the increasing cooperation with the EU on eco-design and digital product tracking, like the digital product passport mechanism. Now, in China, in 2025, they accelerated their development of a unified framework for product carbon footprint management system. Earlier in September 2024, they have already initiated a mandatory-oriented pilot program for PCF labeling and certification. So in 2025, the regulatory process continued with the issuance of the Trial General Implementation Rules for the PCF certification in March, and then the first batch of product catalog for pilot certification in July. Initially, 12 product categories would be subject to the new certification system, and they include key industrial and consumer products. For example, lithium-ion batteries, photovoltaics modules, textile products, and some other electronics and electrical equipments like air conditioners, desktop computers, laptop computers, and more. The final step of this initial framework rollout last year was the issuance of the Trial Implementation Rules for the first batch of product catalog in September. And it sets out the product-specific rules necessary to execute the general rules as mentioned earlier. On the other hand, Taiwan revealed their draft circular economy roadmap last October, and they set very ambitious goals for 2050 compared to the 2020 baseline. The roadmap proposes several powerful governance tools, including a dual circular governance framework, and this involves a revision to the Waste Disposal Act for stricter control and penalties, and also a complete overhaul of the Resource Recycling Act. And I will further elaborate on this point in our next slide. Now, other critical governance tools proposed by the roadmap also involve the new mandates for eco-design that align with the EU ESPR, as well as the adoption of the DP mechanisms and a circular label to primarily enhance consumer transparency. Specifically, the roadmap also mentions a plan to promulgate a standalone regulations for implementing product information disclosure as early as 2026. This draft roadmap would be expected to be finalized by the end of this year, 2026. And of course, we will continue to actively monitor its development. And just a minute ago, we mentioned the overhaul of the Resource Recycling Act. As a matter of fact, the proposal for the overhaul was already released earlier in May last year. And the Act is undergoing a lot of significant amendments, and it is being renamed as the Resource Circulation Promotion Act. It is heavily influenced by the EU ESPR, with the primary goal of providing a framework for establishing eco-design regulations for products. And this, of course, will mandate, for example, recycled material content, product repairability, restrictions on hazardous substances, resource efficiency, and etc. Notably, the proposal will also introduce digital product tracking that is similar to the EU DPP, requiring the detailed disclosure of product information. And finally, the proposal also intends to enhance EPR schemes to ensure a standard product lifespans. By this, manufacturers, importers, and even sellers will be required to provide, for example, collection and repair services, as well as minimum warranty period. At the moment, the relevant WTO notifications suggest that the covered product categories are information and communication technology products, the triple E, batteries, textiles, vehicles and tires, as well as product packaging and containers. Now, Japan, on the other hand, has established a new systems for strengthening resource circulation, and this will become fully enforceable from next month, April 2026. To briefly bring you through what are new, number one, specific products will be required to use recycled materials. And two, a voluntary certification system for environmentally conscious designs will be established. And three, special provisions regarding raw material recycling will be made for manufacturers with high collection targets. Finally, new categories of circular economy commerce businesses will be defined. Following on this, the Japanese government officially introduced a new category of products that is designated as the specified decarbonizations, recycled resources utilizations promoted products. And these designations will also take effect in the coming April. It mandates the use of recycled plastic in targeted products like plastic containers and packaging, automobiles, air conditioners, television receivers, refrigerators, and electric washing machines. Now, finally, coming to the last jurisdictions of our first team, South Korea had proposed a number of important bills throughout 2025 that are related to product sustainability, including those that promote or mandate circularity in product design, sustainable use of products, and even mandatory use of recycled plastics, just like Japan. However, our focus today should be on the right to repair bill that is introduced in last September. Now, unlike the EU and some other US states that have already adopted laws on consumers' right to the repair of goods, for example, the EU Right to Repair Directive, the California's Right to Repair Act, Asia is still generally in the early stages of discussions in this area. South Korea, I would say, is currently the pioneer with their R2R bill. Now, the bill will mandate producers and importers of products to provide repair information and manuals to consumers, and also indicate the repairability period. It will also establish a repairability rating systems that will require products to be to obtain a rating, classifications, and then be labeled accordingly. And this rating will largely depend on the level of provision of those information, the proportion of the repairable functions and parts, the degree of repair difficulty, the smoothness of the parts that were supplied, and any other specific features according to product characteristics. And this is all I have to cover on product sustainability. Moving forward, I will pass it to Lynn to bring you through team number 2 of Asia Product Compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giselle again for taking us through product sustainability and resource circulation. It's clear that resource circulation is a massive piece of the puzzle. Another piece we are watching closely is the shifting landscape of chemical regulations in Asia. Now, you've likely heard of the mandatory Chinese ROS updates for Triple E. I highly recommend checking out my wonderful colleague's blog for the full breakdown of that. But for our time today, we are going to focus specifically on the aggressive phase out of mercury in products across these territories, which is on Theme 2 on product chemical restrictions. As we have already mentioned China has adopted the implementation to the approval of amendments to Annexes A and B of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Although China has published various policies on the prohibition of manufacturing household refrigerators and freezers using HFCs as refrigerants, as well as the extruded polystyrene foam products using HCFCs as foaming agents, I'd like to draw your particular attention to this announcement today. Now, I highlight this not because that this was published on Christmas Eve, though the timing is certainly noteworthy, but because it implements Decision 5 of the UN Minamata Convention on Mercury. This represents a significant step in global mercury phase-out efforts. Let me walk you through the objectives and key deadlines outlined here. The objective of this announcement establishes the control requirements for 12 types of mercury-added products and addresses the polyurethane production process using mercury-containing catalysts. As you can see from the table here, there are critical deadlines that we need to be aware of. The first deadline, which have already been enforced on 31st December 2025, this affects button cell specific capacitors, measuring bridges, and high-frequency RF switches and relays. The upcoming deadline of this year, beginning on 31st December 2026, will affect 4 types of mercury-added fluorescent lamps, including compact fluorescent lamps for general lighting. And given that we are currently already in March, this deadline is fast approaching and requires immediate attention from manufacturers and importers. And looking ahead to 2027, the third deadline, this will affect additional 2 types of mercury-added fluorescent lamps. Furthermore, I want to highlight to you 2 critical prohibitions under this announcement. Firstly, it prohibits the use of mercury-containing catalysts in the production of polyurethane. This will impact production processes directly. And secondly, it prohibits any incorporating mercury-added products assembled into assembled products. So this means downstream manufacturers must ensure that their components comply with these restrictions. It's also worth noting that products used for research, instrument calibration, or reference standards are generally exempted from the production, import, or export prohibitions unless it is specified otherwise. With the 2026 deadline approaching in just 8 months, compliance readiness is critical for anyone in the lighting and electronic supply chain. Moving to Taiwan, Taiwan is proposing to add 3 POPs. There are methoxychlor, also known as DDT, dichlorine plus, and UV328 to its list of controlled toxic chemicals, and restricting their manufacturing, import, sale, and use. The key restriction of this draft includes that it will strengthen the mercury phase-out compliance for small fluorescent lamps without integrated ballasts that I've listed out here on the slide, and this will be effective on December of 31st, 2026. And another compliance deadline beginning on 31st December 2027 will affect the products that I've also listed out here in this slide. Furthermore, it will also prohibit tetrachloroethylene, also known as PCE, that is used in cleaning agents, especially in dry cleaning. And once approved, this prohibition will become effective immediately. So existing handlers with valid registration can continue to use these products until their stock finish. This draft amendment aligns with the Minamata Convention Annex Amendment 2 on mercury. So businesses must urgently review their stocks, secure their permits, and pivot the supplies because non-compliance of this draft amendment will cause immediate halts, especially for the dry cleaning products and also lighting manufacturers. Furthermore, Japan enforces strict controls under its Chemical Substance Control Law, with certain amendments happening in 2025 that designating PFOA and its related substances as Class 1 specified chemicals. Aligning with the Stockholm Convention on POPs, Japan has approved adding the DDT, Dichlorine Plus, and UV328 to the Class 1 list. Products containing Dichlorine Plus and UV328 have been banned from import since June 2025. And similar to China, Japan implemented controls on specific mercury-added products and parts since March of 2025. This has prohibited the import-export of 10 types of products with staggered phases, with the first phase starting on 1st of January 2026 already begun. They cover 4 products, which are zero-oxide button batteries and zinc air button batteries, ballast-shaped fluorescent lamps, cold-coated and external electrode fluorescent lamps for displays, and electric pressure gauges for heated liquid pressure. And the upcoming second phase will affect on compact straight fluorescent lamps in January of 2027, whereas the third phase will affect the triple wavelength lamps in January of 2028. Businesses exporting to Japan must audit the mercury and POPs of their products now and formulate products and try to secure alternatives, because non-compliance will mean immediate market exclusion, with the phase 1 already blocking affected batteries and lamps. Furthermore, onto Hong Kong, Hong Kong's amendment to the Mercury Control Ordinance aligns directly with the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Its primary objective of this amendment is to revise the Schedule 3 in stages, adding 16 mercury-added products and restricting their production, import, and export. The phase 1 already took force on 31st December 2025, where they have targeted the first 8 categories as I shown here in the slide. And the second phase, which has yet to be determined, will cover the rest, which includes switches, relays, compact fluorescents, linear or non-linear lamps. And this amendment builds regional momentum for mercury phase-out. So businesses should prepare so that they will be avoiding such disruptions to their supply chains. And in Singapore, in 2025, Singapore tightened its EPMA to align with the Stockholm and Minamata Conventions. It has introduced the exemptions for the use of the 2 POPs. There are Dichlorine Plus, which have been limited to the life safety uses like aerospace and industrial machinery, and UV328, which are specific to the automotive coatings, blood tubes, and LCD components. Furthermore, Singapore has released a regulation to control 2 types of hazardous chemicals, and there are LCPFCAs and MCCPs. And this will mean that handling of these 2 hazardous substances will require an HS license, their permit, and also transport approval. At the same time, Singapore also has prohibited the import, export, and manufacture of 9 listed mercury-added products. And this prohibition aligns with the international efforts to phase out mercury-added products. And now, let's talk about Vietnam. Since the start of this year, the new chemicals law have been officially enforced. While it doesn't lead with hard prohibitions right out of the gate, but don't let that fool you. It has massive implications for product content restrictions. The law essentially regulates the principles and the development for the entire chemical life cycle, from how they are made to how they are managed in finished goods. And to clear up the how-to, the Vietnamese government has also published a decree to guide operators in applying the principles in the chemical laws regarding managing chemical activities and such hazardous chemicals in finished products. Specifically in Chapter 4, which outlines the framework for managing dangerous chemicals embedded in final products. So in order to control these chemicals in final products, the producers must first implement control processes that I have listed out in 4 pillars. Firstly, tracking chemical composition and concentration. Second, monitoring any hazardous chemicals released during production. And third, verifying the presence and concentration of chemicals in the finished goods. And finally, implementing measures to prevent the leakage or loss of dangerous substances. I would also like to highlight to you in Article 29, where it mandates 3 types of mandatory steps for organization. Firstly, it's to register product details such as their names, chemical properties, concentrations, and their usage onto the specialized chemical database, which have been verified by an authorized laboratory. Secondly, is to publicly share this chemical data and their restricted usage recommendations on websites, or even display at points of sale and on their product labels. And finally, producers must maintain comprehensive records to substantiate all these claims so that these documents be ready for inspection by competent authorities. Moving on to the third theme. The third theme of our webinar today is on product quality, safety, and standardization. This isn't just a technical checklist taken from a bunch of regulations. There are the new passport for market entry, and certain Asian territories have set mandatory benchmarks. Firstly, it is China. In late of Q4 of 2025 into early Q1 2026, this marked a pivotal shift for China, as the Chinese MIIT has proposed 2 mandatory national draft standards on lithium-ion batteries. The first draft is Draft Standard GB 40156, and this draft standard will repeal the GB 40156 that was published in 2021. This draft standard will introduce rigorous safety standards for lithium-ion cells or batteries in stationary power supplies. These tests are overcharge, crush, nail penetration, thermal runaway, and peg thermal propagation. And the draft standard will cover lithium-ion batteries and battery packs in stationary power supplies, such as those in IT equipment, audiovisual equipment, laboratory equipment, and so on. Following that, the Chinese MIIT also proposed the draft standard on coding regulations of lithium batteries. This draft standard enables the traceability of batteries for China and overseas, specifically in the EU markets, and it further provides identifying methods and coding structures. And this draft standard will include lithium-ion batteries, which are in cells, modules, packs, clusters, system, and excludes those lithium batteries used in automotive. The proposal of these drafts proves that the China shifts focus from EVs to stationary applications, and this would demand an enhanced safety and tracking. So we are currently monitoring the approval of these standards, so rest assured. And moving on to Taiwan. Taiwan has introduced mandatory inspection requirements for all photovoltaic inverters under 100 kilowatts. This regulation has also been enforced now, and it will address the surge in renewable energy adoption across Taiwan, with VSMI standardizing safety for residential, commercial, and small-scale industry energy storage systems. PV inverters must first meet 5 critical standards. Firstly, the safety. Secondly, the EMC. Third, grid connectivity for transmitting electricity to the Taiwanese power grid. And fourth point is cybersecurity technical specification. And finally, which is the most important point, restricted substances disclosure. Products must clearly display this information on the product itself, packaging, on instruction manuals. And if this information is disclosed via the website, the URL must be clearly indicated on the product itself, packaging, or instruction manuals. Additionally, industrial use only warnings are required for relevant EMC classifications. For the mandatory inspection on PV inverters, manufacturers can choose between two assessment procedures, and they are registration of product certification or type-approved batch inspection. Now, testing must be performed at the BSMI-approved designated laboratories. So organizations should begin the type testing process now to ensure compliance before the July 2027 deadline. On the other hand, modeled after the EU Common Charger Directive, South Korea is mandating USB Type-C receptacles connectors for portable electronic devices. This move is a direct effort by the South Korean government to lower the environmental footprint of electronic production and cutting down on redundant accessories. Manufacturers have just 8 months away from today to adjust supply chains and product designs before November 2026, which is the enforcement deadline. After that, all specified devices are required to be equipped with a standardized USB Type-C receptacle connector. And examples of these affected products, which I've listed out, are personal tags such as mobile phones, tablets, laptops, and audio and gaming equipment like headphones, portable speakers, video game consoles, and also covering peripherals which are keyboards, digital cameras, and etc. Non-compliance of this product will not be permitted for sale after the November deadline. Moving to Vietnam, Vietnam has implemented its amended law on product and goods quality, and this decree is in force. This decree will apply to all producers, traders supplying in the Vietnamese market and represents a fundamental transformation in how product compliance is managed in Vietnam. This decree creates a national digital quality management platform and establishes new regulations specifically for e-commerce products. This signals Vietnam's commitment to modernizing its regulatory infrastructure and enhancing consumer protection in the digital age. There's also 4 key pillars for this decree. Firstly, it's on risk-based classification. Vietnam is shifting to a targeted 3-tier system. The first one is on low-risk goods that use self-declaration. Secondly, is on medium-risk goods that require self-assessment or accredited certification. And finally, high-risk goods that should face mandatory third-party certification. And the second pillar is digital integration. The government is establishing a national digital platform, introducing digital product passports and electronic labels for the streamline of compliance tracking. And thirdly, is on e-commerce oversight, which mandates the mandatory labeling and management rules that will be applied to all sellers and platform operators. And finally, the final pillar is strict traceability. And for high-risk products, the barcode or traceability system are now made mandatory. So existing goods labeled and packaged before January of 2026 can be continued to be circulated and used for a maximum of 2 years. So if I'm taking January 2026 as a starting point, and 2 years from now will be January 2028, which means that the new labeling and packaging rules will become fully effective. This shows that Vietnam is clearly signaling its evolution towards digital and risk-based compliance. Finally, on Singapore, the CPSO has published a circular on the update to the regulatory requirements for toughened glass gas hobs under the Consumer Protection Regulations. This circular aims to transition from physical safety brochures to mandatory digital QR code advisories, thus requiring registered suppliers to affix a QR code to their products. Currently, suppliers can use the QR codes or the existing printed brochure. However, after 9 July 2026 onwards, printed brochure must be discontinued and only the QR code advisories are permitted. This QR code must be affixed directly to the gas hob surface or printed within the instruction manual, and the format of such QR code must meet the specific dimensions as provided in Annex A. And this change is important because toughened glass gas hobs require specific care to prevent spontaneous shattering, and the CPSO has determined that physical brochures are often discarded. Hence, a QR code on the appliance itself proves a permanent safety touchpoint. So registered suppliers should download the official QR code templates from the authority's website and begin implementing this change ahead of the deadline in July of this year. For the non-compliant products would not be allowed to be sold and would be deemed in violation of this circular. Now, returning the spotlight to Giselle to take us through the final theme of the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, Lynn, for the useful information about these very complex landscapes of product chemicals and safety. So our fourth and final theme of today is digital product security and artificial intelligence. The digital product trends observed throughout 2025 are fundamentally shaped by a swift transition towards the mandatory security by design principles for connected products, and coupled with the urgent necessity for robust AI governance frameworks. In terms of product cybersecurity, my previous white papers has covered the global developments for the past 2 years, including the proposal for China's mandatory national standards on consumer IoT product security in 2025, and the launch of Japan's voluntary cybersecurity labeling schemes, JC Star, in the same year. So our focus today then is on important developments by China and Taiwan in late 2025. So last November, China proposed the cybersecurity labeling management measures, which will establish a voluntary labeling system for products with internet connection features. These new systems will introduce 3 cybersecurity capability levels that are indicated by stars. On the first level, we have the basic level with 1 star, and it is for products meeting fundamental national security requirements. Secondly, we have enhanced level with 2 stars, which is for products achieving advanced national standards. On the highest level, we have the leading level with 3 stars, and it is for products achieving advanced international standards as well as passing penetration testings against high-level cybersecurity. This new system is subject to phase introduction, starting with a specific product catalog. And the first batch of products is known to be the consumer connected cameras. A quick note on AI before we move on to Taiwan. China is developing an AI safety standard system which will, among many other things, manage the safety risks across the entire life cycle of AI products and services. Of course, CNR will keep on monitoring this aspect as well. Now, Taiwan's focus is on network and IoT product security. In October last year, as part of the mandatory product inspection by the BSMI, they proposed to add cybersecurity testing requirements for network products, as well as IT and audiovisual products with network connectivity. I will not go through the full list of products that I cover, but to give you a few examples, the affected products include gateways like smart speakers and smart home assistants, and also connected digital cameras, video recorders, and even televisions. It is proposed that from the 1st of January 2028, both domestically produced and imported products will have to be inspected against the applicable national cybersecurity standards, such as the CNS 18031 series on common security requirements for internet-connected radio equipment. And if you are familiar with this, you will know that this is equivalent to the EU Radio Equipment Directive Cybersecurity Harmonized Standard, the EN 18031 series. Or at the choice of the applicant, they may also apply the CNS 16190 standard, which is about baseline cybersecurity requirements for consumer IoT. In terms of AI, South Korea is currently the regional leader in this regulatory landscape. Their AI Framework Act, officially known as the Framework Act on the Advancement of AI and the Establishment of Trust-Based Systems, became fully effective just not long ago in January this year. And the law imposes transparency and safety responsibilities on businesses that deploy develop high impact AI and generative AI. In terms of transparency, for example, business operators offering high impact or generative AI powered products or service will have to notify their users in advance that their product or service uses AI, and they must also label AI generated content. In terms of safety, on the other hand, business operators that operate AI systems could be required to identify, assess, and mitigate risks throughout the AI life cycles, as well as establishing a risk management system to monitor and respond to any AI-related safety incidents. So, as the second jurisdiction globally to enact a comprehensive AI regulations, the South Korea AI Framework Act is notable for its moderate enforcement compared to the EU AI Act, including a simpler classification of high impact and generative AI, and the absence of prohibited AI practices and lower monetary fines for violations compared to the EU AI Act. On the other hand, Japan maintains a relatively light touch regulation. Their AI Promotion Act, officially known as the Promotion of Research, Development, and Utilizations of AI-related Technology Act, became fully enforceable in September last year. And as the name suggests, it is mainly focused on promoting the R&D and use of AI-related technologies. This act clearly defines the responsibilities of all stakeholders, including businesses that use AI and enterprises that develop and supply AI-based products and services. And these stakeholders, they will have to comply with any measures set forth by the governments in the future. And finally, Vietnam has also moved pretty fast in codifying their national law on artificial intelligence. The law was adopted in late 2025 and has recently entered into force on the 1st of March, with, of course, a grace period for many existing AI system providers and deployers lasting until the 1st of March next year, 2027. This AI law applies to both domestic and foreign entities engaged in AI activities in Vietnam, covering the usual research, development, provisions, deployment, and even the use of AI systems. It is, I would say, similar to the EU AI Act as it uses a risk-based classification, classifying AI systems as high, medium, or low risk, but there is no unacceptable risk category like the EU AI Act. And this Vietnam law also prohibits certain AI practices, including using AI to deceive or manipulate individuals through fabricated elements, or using, processing, or collecting data to develop, train, and operate their AI systems that is in violation of the national personal data protection law, intellectual property law, and even cybersecurity law. Very importantly, entities that develop, provide, or operate AI systems have a number of transparency and safety obligations as well. For example, in terms of transparency, entities will have to enable their users to recognize interaction with AI systems and also mark AI-generated content as required. Safety measures, on the other hand, will include implementing comprehensive risk management system, reporting serious incidents, and taking corrective measures such as recall. Now, this concludes the trends of the Asian digital product security and AI. Moving forward, I will pass it back to Lynn again to summarize the key takeaways from this webinar.
Thank you, Giselle, and thank you for everyone who's staying with us. And let me distill what we've covered into actionable insights in this key takeaways segment. From today's 4 themes, there are clear patterns that emerge. Firstly, circular economy that goes mandatory. This is proven in China's carbon footprint certification that have been operational. Secondly, Taiwan's digital product passport, which will be launching in 2026, and Japan's mandate on recycled plastics reporting from April 2026. This shows that sustainability now requires transparency across entire product life cycles. Second theme is mercury and chemical phase out that is accelerating. The multi-phases bans are hitting China, Singapore, Taiwan, and Japan with most deadlines between 2026 and 2028. These grace periods are very short, so companies should formulate quickly. And on the third, the safety standards are expanding to high tech. This is evident in Taiwan's PV inverter inspection that will start in July 2027, South Korea's USVC mandate that takes effect in November of this year, and finally, Vietnam's digital quality platform with its electronic labels that will be launched in after 2 years. This shows that digital integration and traceability are now mandatory. And finally, AI governance frameworks are indeed emerging. South Korea, Vietnam, and Japan have all enacted AI laws with risk-based frameworks. AI governance has shifted from voluntary to mandatory. So in conclusion, the regulatory landscape in Asia-Pacific is transforming rapidly. So what is the key message? And I'm very sure you've heard about this before. The key message is to act now or forever hold your peace. This concludes our webinar today. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to Orla to ask us some questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Giselle and Lynn, for that really insightful webinar. We've had questions submitted to us about this topic, which is no surprise. A lot of questions around this area. So we have the floor open now for the Q&A session. So if you do have a question that you would like Giselle and Lynn to answer, please use the Ask a Question widget to the left side of your screen. And yeah, as mentioned, we've had a few submitted already, so we'll answer them now, which I'm conscious of the time. So whatever we don't get to during the session today, make sure to still submit a question because we'll reach out to you directly with an answer, and we'll also be sending around a guide of this webinar that will contain the full Q&A list so you can see all of the questions and answers from today. So starting off with the first question, other than South Korea, are there any other Asian countries that are seeking to regulate or have already regulated right to repair?
Yep, Ola, I can take the questions. Yes, indeed, Philippines has proposed a bill on the right to repair for digital electronic products, and this was in October last year. In fact, there had been introducing similar bills over the past few years, but their progress remained slow and most of the bills were abandoned. And the latest bill of 2025 focuses on the provisions of the proper repair information and tools by the original equipment manufacturers. Whether this bill will be further developed will still require further observations.
Okay, great. Thank you, Giselle. Next question, which other Asian countries are enacting mercury bans on products under Minamata obligations?
Hi, Orla. I think that question is for me on the second theme that I mentioned, product content restrictions. So there are other Asian countries that are actually following suit to this phase out mercury added products. India have pledged for tighter mercury regulations. They are focusing on addressing pollution for mercury added products. Also in Indonesia is implementing a national action plan that will impose control management and phase out for mercury added products. And also finally, Malaysia, they have signed the convention in 2014, but it has increasingly aligned its Domestic Environmental Quality Act with the Minamata standards, which are focused on industrial mercury raise, the threshold as of the late of 2025. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Lynn. And then just a final question that we'll cover during this Q&A session. Under the Vietnam AI law, who is responsible for reporting incidents? When and how should the incident be reported?
Hi, Ola. Since this question is about AI, so let me take it. So, based on my understanding, all stakeholders involved in the AI lifecycle, including developers, providers, deployers, and even users, they have a collective responsibility to ensure the safety of their system. So, for developers and providers, I would say in case of serious incident, they will have to when they have to fix and pause or recall the systems, and at the same time they will have to notify the competent state authority. Similarly, for deployers and users, they will have to record the incident and report it to the state authority as well. In relation to how the AI incident should be reported, all incident reporting and handling processes are conducted through the National AI Single Window portal, but the operational details, including data submissions formats and the access protocols, will await further regulations from the government. So CNR, of course, will continue to monitor on this aspect. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much for that. And again, just please do make sure to send in any questions if you haven't done so already. And even after this webinar, if you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to me or to using the Start a Conversation feature as well with any other regulatory queries that you have. And I would like to thank you all for tuning in with us. We hope you found today's presentation helpful and look forward to seeing you in our upcoming webinars. Giselle and Lynn, thank you both so much again for your insights. Really, really appreciate having you here today. And you can check out our resources section on the Compliance and Risks website to stay updated and to access all of our content, which includes white papers, blogs, and webinars, both upcoming and on demand. So yeah, make sure to take a look through there. We've had some amazing webinars already in 2026 and plenty more to come. So yeah, make sure you do keep an eye out. Thank you all again for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great day.